Associated rc10t5m. And this is not just a stadium truck, this is the stadium truck. Team Associated rc10t started it all way back in the early 90s with the original rc10t. This one right here. And if you take a look, as far as like size of wheelbase goes, they're about the same, but like underneath the body, big difference. So T5M. This thing's been out for a while. I've had it for a while. You can tell by how busted up the body is. So I'm just now doing a video on it because I have a lot of cars and trucks, so a lot of my other videos, this thing was in the background, and a lot of people have asked me questions about it, like, what is that? Or, you know, people who are just looking to buy one of these want to know what I'm running for a setup, for electronics, tires, and everything like that. So when you buy this truck, it comes unassembled to kit. You got to build it. And the kit, it comes with no wheels, no tires, no electronics. You got to add that stuff. So, and the reason why I assume they do that is because this truck is made for racing. It's a competition, 10 scale, rear wheel drive stadium truck. So they know you're more than likely gonna be on different kinds of tracks, hard packed surfaces, loose dirt tracks, or some cases even a carpet track. So it keeps costs down by not including wheels and tires because they know you might just change them anyway. So when you buy this, it comes with a ton of little screws and parts in a bag in a box, and you got to build it, and that's a lot of fun. So like, I would encourage kids to go out and buy a kit and build it like this, because ready to run ones are cool. I buy them all the time. It's nice. Open the box, pop in the batteries, take it for a rip. But when you buy a kit and you build it, if you're out there racing it and it breaks, you know exactly how to fix it. You know how to fine tune the suspension and make it corner good, hook up and go. So, you know, like I said, I would encourage any kid, don't be afraid to buy one of these things and put them together. So you can always get help if you run into trouble building it. So alright, so let me pop the body off, show you what I'm running for a setup. So right now I'm actually running a brushed motor. Normally I would run a brushless setup like this. This is a rc10t5m 6.5 turn motor with a hobby wing ESC. I've had really good luck with the rc stuff, but I was racing with this thing one day, shut the truck off, wouldn't restart, it was a bad ESC. So I had this brush setup kicking around. I actually took this out of my Axial SMT10. It's the 27 turn axle motor. I just threw it in here because I wanted to see what it would be like, because the axle was incredibly slow. So I put it in this thing, and it's pretty quick with this motor and speed control. So, but I'm not going to leave it in here. I got a new ESC on the way, so I can put my rc10t motor in. And like I said, I just wanted to see how this would go. So if you take a look, the motor is in front of the axle, in front of the rear axle. That's why it's called the T5M, mid motor. Even though it's not really in the middle of the truck, it's somewhat mid motor, as opposed to the original rc10t, where the motor's behind the axle. So if you take a look, motor's back there, behind the axle. Having the motor behind the axle is great on a really loose track where traction is low. Having the motor in front of the axle gives you an advantage in a hard pack track in the cornering. That's where it makes a difference in the cornering, and that's where most of your races are won, specifically corner entry, because entering a corner sets you up for a corner exit and leads you usually to a little straightaway. So all your races are won in corners. Remember that. That's what's important. So if this is something you're going to take to a track, practice cornering. That's the most important thing. So master the corners and you'll win the race. Trust me. So again, these electronics I don't normally run. I would never advise you to run a brush setup, and it doesn't even fit that well. Being this is a mid motor, if you look at where the motor is, there's not a whole lot of room. So I actually had to really do a little bit of work to get that motor in there, but it's coming out soon anyway. So as far as batteries go, so typically you would run a saddle pack like that. They give you these little foam blocks. There's a few included in the kit to basically adapt to any size battery. I usually run a 2-cell. And there's a little hole down. A couple of these little thumb screws. One there. One on the other side. Makes it easy to take the battery off and on. So the saddle packs are nice because you can't really fit a typical stick pack in here with the mid-mount configuration, because the motor being in front of the axle takes away a lot of room. So that's why they run the saddle pack. So that's what you want if you're like racing or something. There's a lot of requirements or class rules. But if you're just bashing around or practicing or something, you can run a stick pack in these. So what I do is I take something like this, like a 3-cell, and it kind of like fits nicely right in the chassis right there. It fits like a glove, like it snaps right in there. And then you could just take a piece of Velcro like this, just wrap it around. So you can just Velcro a battery in like that, 3-cell stick pack, and that gives you way longer run times and a little more power, but it's going to handle a lot different. So if you're going to use this a lot for track, you're going to want to practice with the battery you're going to race with. But like if you're just with your buddies, you're bashing around, by all means use this setup. It makes it a lot more fun. So I don't really race that much anymore. There's not too many tracks nearby, and like I have a track I built in my backyard, but that's just again for fun. So again, this setup's not competition legal, but if you're just out having fun, it's a great way to go. That's how I run this thing most of the time, whether I'm running a brushless motor or brushed. So I'll show you the battery. It's a Electron Pro 7600 with a 75C discharge rate, so that gives it a lot of power. As far as radio gear goes, I usually run like a Futaba, because you could just buy different receivers and you can link them. So you can, one radio you can run a bunch of different vehicles on. So that's pretty cool right there. It saves you from having to buy a bunch of different radios if you have multiple trucks or cars. Airtronics is a good one. I tend to stay away from the Spectrum stuff. Not that they're that bad, but like they're more entry level. Out of the box, the suspension on this thing is great. It comes with nice hard anodized aluminum shocks, plastic shock caps, but I've never had an issue with this thing breaking. These 10 scale stadium trucks are so lightweight that they're almost like not heavy enough to break themselves. But shock towers are kind of, I don't know, they're plastic, they have a little flex to them, but that's easily upgraded, and that's something like, it's good because if you're racing in a class, a stadium truck class, it's nice because if there's other T5Ms running, you can have yours upgraded in a different way than one of your competitors, and you can beat them, you can have the advantage. So out of the box you get a lot of adjustments. They give you different lower spring perches to adjust ride height, fully adjustable. So this kit comes with a few different lower spring perches, suspension inserts, multiple mounting positions for the turnbuckles. So the suspension is fully adjustable for track conditions or weight of the batteries or whatever setup you're running. So suspension is great. I would just recommend upgrading shock towers, but it's not a necessity. As far as wheels and tires go, that's going to depend on what kind of surface you're running on. Something like if you're running on a loose track, a hard pack track, probably it's always good to have a few sets of wheels and tires kicking around. If it's an outdoor track, depending on weather conditions, how hot it is, how humid, there's so many variables, it's good to have a few different sets of tires. There are so many different tire options. That's just something you're going to have to play around and experiment with. If you're going to a track, maybe there's some other guys out there with some spares that could let you try for a few laps if you're just practicing. There are so many variables that come into play when selecting a tire, like temperature, humidity, those all affect track conditions in an outdoor track. Indoor tracks usually use like a hard pack clay so it's not too critical. Or a lot of times, a lot of people run these on carpet tracks. So really on a carpet track, any tire works. So, you know, don't be afraid to ask any like fellow racers, you know, if you see them with extra tires. Usually people are more than happy to help you. Steering is just a basic bell crank setup, all plastic, but they make some nice upgrade pieces for that, so that's probably something I'm going to do this in the future. But out of the box, the steering is perfect on this thing, so unless something breaks, I don't see a reason to upgrade it. And if you take a look above the servo, they give you a generous amount of room to mount speed controllers, receivers, things like that. So overall, the layout on this truck, I'm really happy with it because you can fit a bunch of different batteries, speed controls, different size servos. Well, the servo, there's not really a lot of room. I was running a Spectrum servo in it before I switched to the Savix, and the Spectrum servo was a little bit bigger, and actually a couple of wires chafed, so one day the steering just went out. But you know, so keep that in mind when you're picking out a servo. You don't have a lot of room there. So I've been running this truck for a couple of years now. I've really never had anything break on it. And if you've watched my other videos, you know I'm definitely really rough on my vehicles. So this one's no exception. And the only thing that's really broken is the body, but it's still the original body it came with. I never put the decals on it, and I just painted it white because honestly I was a little too impatient. So I'm probably going to pick up another body, just do like a fancy paint job. I don't know, so if you're in the market for a two-wheel drive 10 scale stadium truck, rc10t5m is an awesome truck, and you won't be disappointed. And it looks cool too. These things use a cab forward body. Sometimes I look at it and I don't know, it looks kind of weird, but other times I look at it and I know why they went with this cab forward design. I'm sure that they did a lot of like wind tunnel tests for aerodynamics, set the body real low, and the shocks are behind the axle. They're at the back of the control arm, so they had to make the body able to clear those shocks. That's why they're all the way in the back, as opposed to like the original RC10T where they're more forward. But ultimately, to me, I think going fast is looking good, so I really don't care about the body that much. So anyway, if you're in the market for a stadium truck, I hope this video helped you a little bit, and I'll show you a little bit of footage of it running around. So that's one dirty T5M. But it ran pretty good, even with a brushed motor. So you can see it's a really good truck because... So I live in Connecticut, and we had a snowstorm. It was like 10 degrees outside, and then today it was 50 degrees, so all the snow melted. Made a really muddy track condition, so this thing's filthy now. And I think the best way to go about cleaning a truck like this, a lot of guys like to take compressed air and just blow it off, but maybe at home you don't have an air compressor. And also, when you do that, you force dirt and water and all the bearings and everything, so I like to just let them dry on their own, and then that mud becomes like dust, and then you could just like brush it off. So anyway, if you're looking to buy a two-wheel drive 10 scale stadium truck, T5M, you can't go wrong. So take care, see you next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe and smash that bell.